it's just such the general gaiety and exuberance of her life hardly be contained. But this hat that Harry's wearing, it's not a cowboy hat. I know what cowboy hats look like. This man is wearing an oversized fedora. That's what that is. So someone needs to tell him that this isn't a cowboy hat. And any self-respecting country music lover who has a cowboy hat and a set of boots knows that that's not a cowboy hat. But anyway, it's just a big fedora. But it's just, just these displays of public affection and this exuberance, these smiles and these open mouth, gaping smiles. When she's flying high and when she's feeling good and she's promoting her endeavors, like her Netflix show or her brand launch or her podcast or whatever, she never trots Harry out. Everything that she's pushing out in social media is always her alone. She's the focus. But I feel like when the negativity starts getting to be a little bit too much for her to bear, that's when she brings out her human crutch, Harry. It's been a week. Can you believe the news cycle lately with all the celebrity madness, debauchery drama, right? From Harry's court case to wandering around, ringing doorbells, to the Diddy trial, Meghan smiling like the cat that ate the canary at the Beyonce concert, posing. I cannot keep up with this debauchery. I mean, we're just out here trying to raise families, pay bills, and these fools are running amok. It's like the fall of the Roman Empire. It's crazy. It's crazy. So I just wanted a nice little hot cup of tea sitting here with you guys. And before I get into it though, I just wanted to say I am so humbled, so grateful. You guys, my channel hit 10K subscribers in the past few days. And just to know that so many of you are watching, liking the videos, subscribing to the channel, befriending me in the comments, leaving wonderful comments, insightful comments, whether you agree with me or not, it's so humbling to be a part of this community and to find a measure of success on this platform. This is a really hard platform to get started on. It's a really hard platform to sustain. I am just a part-time YouTuber, you guys. I am a stay-at-home mom, full-time homeschooling mom, part-time YouTuber. I'm trying to run a household. My mom lives with us. She's 85. Thank God she's still spry and everything's great there. But I've got a lot going on. Coming up in the next couple of months, we are going to do a big family move overseas for a few years. We're going to maintain a residence in the US, but I've got all that coming up. But to see that number go up makes me realize that this is all worth it. You guys are the reason why I'm here. I am just grateful that you are listening to me babble on. Anything I got going on in my head, whether it's Harry and Meghan, or whether it's about other stuff going on in the culture, or whether I'm rattling on about skincare and makeup, just the fact that you guys are here with me for the journey, I appreciate you so much. It's amazing. I could not be more grateful, and I thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. Okay, so let's take a sip because we got some stuff to talk about. Okay. So what do you think? Is it just me, or is it like the fall of the freaking Roman Empire out there in celebrity world? All this crazy madness that's going on. I'm going to be focusing specifically on Harry and Meghan because I really feel like just taking a step back over the past week or so and observing his behavior during that BBC interview after he lost his court case battle over his security, and then witnessing Harry and Meghan's behavior in the press just a few days later, all this hanging on each other, kind of high schoolish vibe at the Beyonce concert that they're putting out there in the press. It's all just so unbelievably disturbing. And I know I say disturbing a lot when I talk about their behavior, but just that's because it is. It's just very disturbing. And I think watching Harry, especially this past week after he gave that interview, it's becoming more and more apparent that I think Harry is going through life conducting himself as if he's in an out-of-body experience. He just has so much rage against everyone now, his family, the public. He just really feels that he is entirely within the right to just wage this war against the press, his family, and the public, because we're not buying what he's selling. We haven't been buying what he's selling for a really long time, even though he really feels that he is well within his rights to get anything and everything he wants. And that includes police protection whenever he wants it. And that's why he's so upset now, because he lost that court case. But you can see watching that interview, he's a broken man who is a petulant man-child at the very same time. And he's also under the controlling thumb, who I believe is a narcissistic, sociopathic, fame-hungry woman. It's almost as if she's reveling in the fact that he is just on this downward spiral. I can't observe the way she behaves and come to any other conclusion. She is completely assisting his downward spiral, and I don't really think she cares. I personally feel that this man is in danger. Harry is in danger whether he realizes it or not, because this man rolls over and does whatever he's told. And I don't know if you saw, but in the last couple days, a YouGov poll came out, and her popularity has tanked to an all-time low. It's at the lowest it's ever been before, I guess, the YouGov people started tracking her popularity back in 2017. It's at the absolute lowest it's ever been. And because of that, I really feel that he is going to be in the path of her narcissistic rage, even more so than he has been in the past. This man is just a puppet in Meghan's game. All of her actions in the past, all of her actions in the present, they all point to that. He doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know what he stands for. He doesn't understand the reality of the situation in which he finds himself. That's really why he doesn't even understand what he stands for, what he's fighting for. He's just basically doing her bidding. He's doing what he's been told to do. And he's been doing that ever since he got entangled with that woman. I feel as long as he's with her, this situation is going to continue, and it's going to inevitably get worse. And what I find so comical about this entire legal court battle, and mind you, he started in September 2021, and now in May 2025, it's finally now all ended. I mean, unless this dolt wants to appeal to the Supreme Court in the UK, but if he's going to have to waste even more of his own money, I personally doubt that he's even going to do that. But what I find so just completely crazed is that he's fighting for police protected security in the UK, the equivalent of what senior working royals get. The king, the queen, the prince and princess of Wales, and all full-time working royals. He still wants that. He wants that protection, and he wants that status. And it's all on the basis of he can't bring his family over there because he's denied the same level of protection that his family has, senior working members. But what's so hysterical is that his wife doesn't even ever want to come back. I fully believe that this woman wants nothing to do with the UK. She is a bully, and don't forget, all bullies are cowards. She knows how much she's disliked in the UK. She does not want to step foot on UK soil. She has absolutely no interest in stepping foot on UK soil. She doesn't like the royal family. She doesn't feel comfortable around them because I believe that she has been fully unmasked. They know exactly who they're dealing with. And not only that, but she has been unmasked to the British public. The British public have her number. They know who she is and what she's all about. And now over here in America, I would say in the past year or so now, the mainstream media has finally started to catch on who she is, what she's about, how she's manipulating Harry. And don't get me wrong, I'm not completely letting him off the hook because he has really made his own bed. But basically, everyone's tuning into who these two are. So now it's like her narcissistic rage has just been fueled even more. And you can totally see that in the way that she's been acting out in the press. And I'll get into that in a little bit, the stuff she posted on her Instagram from the Beyonce concert. But getting back to what I was saying, that's why I think these legal battles and all this time, effort, and money that Harry has been wasting fighting these legal battles is so completely hysterical because it's based on what she's telling him. She's telling him that the only way she could ever go back is if she got the type of protection that working senior royals have. But she doesn't even really want to. She knows that they're not going to get it. But that's what she can whisper in his ear to make it seem like she's cooperating, she's on board, she's just trying to be a loving wife. But we all know she doesn't want to step foot back over in the UK. If she was smart to save her husband's sanity and their own money, she just would have said, you know what, I don't want to go back, I don't care. I guarantee you, if she would have said that, Harry would have never have furthered this whole cause. He's been doing this because she is at the helm of all the decision making in that relationship. She has been telling him what to do and how to do it since the day that they met. I'm sitting here, I've got my notes because I needed a lot of notes. Writing so much stuff down about Harry and thinking he just looks so defeated and he just looks so lost. But then at the same time, a petulant man-child filled with rage, right? He's acting out. He's acting out for a reason. And what is that reason? Well, he's acting out because he's got her, Meghan, in his ear all the time, feeding him all this nonsense. Imagine if you were a performer on stage and you can never remember your lines and you can't do your job properly and you've got a little bug in your ear and they're telling you everything about what to do, how to do it, what to say, how to move, whatever. That's what I picture when I picture Meghan. She's just constantly feeding him all this stuff. Harry's always been a dolt. I mean, let's call it what it is. That guy's always been a troublemaker. He's always been an outlier. He's always been a dolt. His mother, Diana, knew who he was, what he was about. She's documented as saying that she's always worried for him and how he would turn out, his place in the family. She just really wanted him to be able to support William and William to be able to support Harry. She wanted them working in tandem. She wanted them as a strong unit. And she knew who her son was, Harry. She knew he was a wild card. And it's been documented in so many books and so many articles that he didn't really receive a whole heck of a lot of discipline. I mean, let's be honest, he just didn't. So he's always been a dolt. He hasn't been the brightest. He didn't have a stellar academic career at all. I mean, the guy couldn't even pass his A-level art class. I mean, so what did they do? They put him in the military. And in the military, he really thrived. He's an athletic guy. He loves to be chummy with the guys. That was his life. He was in the military for a long time. And it was only in June 2015 when he officially was out and started working full-time as a working royal. So think about that for a second. Meghan and Harry stepped down officially in January of 2020. And he was officially a full-time member out of the military working in a full-time working royal capacity in June 2015. So he was only really active working for the family for about 5 years. What a wild card. Think about that. You can't even work for 5 years properly and mind your P's and Q's, okay? So this guy has been just dense his whole entire life. And I really feel like Cressida and what was the other one? Chelsea Davy, they really dodged a bullet there. Those two didn't want any part of the fishbowl that was the royal life. And I'm sure that once they got into serious relationship with Harry, they were able to see just how insecure and how even somewhat dangerous and volatile he was. He's always been into recreational drugs, hard partying, so quite the package. So he's never been the brightest bulb. So along comes fame-hungry Meghan, this divorced American actress. And what does she do? She weaponizes all of his insecurities. And she took those insecurities and she just molded and melded them and twisted them to suit her agenda. But what's really, really smart on Meghan's part is that even though she's working behind the scenes and using all of Harry's insecurities to her own advantage, she's very adept at making Harry feel as if everything is his idea. The master manipulators, especially women in relationships that are like that, that's how they do it. That's how they wield their power over their husbands. They make their husbands feel like it's all their idea. And she is great at that. So because he feels that everything that he does is his own idea, that is that rage and that seething anger that you see coming across through Harry in his latest BBC interview. This man really does feel that he is entitled to all of the perks of being a full-time working royal without being a full-time working royal. He feels that it is his birthright. He feels that he is making all these choices, that he's furthering this legal drama because he feels that it's right. And I was watching from January 2020 in London, a speech Harry gave at a Instability charity dinner. And this is when they were first making the public announcements that they were going to be stepping down from the family. He actually says in that speech something to the effect of, "This hasn't been an easy decision that I have made for my wife and my family." And I'm thinking, ding, ding, ding. There it is right there. She's always trying to plant the idea, well, this is what's good for us, honey. This is what I need, and it's your decision, when technically it really isn't his decision. Hey guys, editing Jennifer here. But these are a few clips that I'm going to show you from a speech that Harry gave in London back in January 2020. It was actually a Instability charity dinner. And I think it's very telling of the stronghold that Meghan has had over Harry. And you can see it even back then. He truly believes, even to this day, that it was his idea to leave the royal family and not hers. And this is also one of the first times that you see Harry putting out there their narrative that, that they have wanted out there since the beginning when they left the family. And that narrative is that titles don't matter to them, but what matters is being authentic and living a life of service, and that living that life of service is the most important thing. So just listen to the way he talks way back in January 2020.
So I want you to hear the truth from me, as much as I can share, not as a prince or a duke, but as Harry, the same person that many of you have watched grow up over the last 35 years, but now with a clearer perspective. The UK is my home and a place that I love. That will never change. I've grown up feeling supported from so many of you, and I watched as you welcomed Meghan with open arms, as you saw me find the love and happiness that I'd hoped for all my life. I also know that you've come to know me well enough over all these years to trust that the woman I chose as my wife upholds the same values as I do. And she does. And she's the same woman I fell in love with. We both do everything we can to fly the flag and carry out our roles for this country with pride. Once Meghan and I were married, we were excited, we were hopeful, and we were here to serve. For those reasons, it brings me great sadness that it has come to this. The decision that I have made for my wife and I to step back is not one I made lightly.
The decision that I have made for my wife and I to step back is not one I made lightly.
It was so many months of talks after so many years of challenges. And I know I haven't always gotten it right, but as far as this goes, there really was no other option.
There really was no other option.
What I want to make clear is we're not walking away. And we certainly aren't walking away from you. Our hope was to continue serving the Queen, the Commonwealth, and my military associations, but without public funding. Unfortunately, that wasn't possible. I've accepted this, knowing that it doesn't change who I am or how committed I am.
Unfortunately, that wasn't possible. I've accepted this, knowing that it doesn't change who I am or how committed I am.
But I hope that helps you understand what it had come to, that I would step my family back from all I have ever known, to take a step forward into what I hope can be a more peaceful life. It has been our privilege to serve you, and we will continue to lead a life of service. So in that respect, nothing changes. My family for the support they have shown Meghan and I over the last few months.
Did you hear that nonsense? I mean, did you hear him thank everyone, including the British public and his own family, for welcoming Meghan into the royal family with open arms? And how he has appreciated growing up with so much support over his then 35 years? I mean, this man has always talked out of both sides of his mouth. I mean, he's giving a speech and he's grateful for all of the support he has supposedly always received up to that point. But then he finds himself with no other option but to leave the royal family and full-time public service. So let me get this straight, Harry. You're leaving a supportive family, which spends all of its time furthering charitable causes. That's what they do, including causes that you and your wife supposedly claim that you were deeply aligned with. So why leave? They never really gave a particular reason at that point, other than that they wanted peace and a more progressive role that they wanted to carve out for themselves within the institution. And never forget that the R allegations that they hurled at the family, they didn't come until a little over a year later in March 2021. And it's pretty timely considering that's when Charles stopped paying their security overseas. Think about it. This is how she's been able to manipulate him from the very, very beginning. Make it seem as if the world is out to get her and hence out to get him because he chose her. I really feel like she probably played nice until the ring was on her finger, meaning the engagement ring, because we all know that she carried on something awful during the wedding planning. She was making Kate cry. She was doing all these horrible things behind the scenes, yelling at staff. I mean, the queen had to step in and tell her that we do not conduct ourselves in this manner. We do not yell at members of the royal household, right? So I think even before the wedding, her mask was starting to slip among members of the royal family. So then it became, they don't like me, they don't want me to succeed within the family, and they probably don't like me because I'm half black, and now the press isn't liking me and the public isn't liking me. So that's why he felt compelled, while they were still dating, remember, to release that statement to the press that you basically need to lay off of my biracial American actress girlfriend. So that's all going on, still in the beginning stages of their relationship, her manipulating him behind the scenes. I love you, but they don't love me. And by default, Harry, they don't love you or your choice. So it's all very, very, very crafty, this one. So then she's pregnant and it's becoming more and more of a rumbling behind the scenes, how she's treating palace staff, what's going on there, all of that stuff. And then all of the claims about how she was just having very dark mental thoughts, her threats to unalive herself. Harry doesn't know what to do. He feels trapped. The institution isn't supporting her. They're not being supported by the institution. Everything's crumbling around them. And now it turns into a safety issue, right? Because she's pregnant. She's pregnant with his child. And then when the child is born, before the child's born, it's a question of what is the child going to look like? What's the skin color? It's all this very covert operation on the part of the British public and the palace. And it turns more and more into a high stakes drama. They don't like me, Harry, therefore they hate you and your choices. They don't like me because I'm half black. And who knows what she was saying? She was probably saying something like, well, they will never accept our children, right? They're not accepting Archie because they're questioning what is his skin color going to look like. So then it becomes even more dark because it's an issue of her safety. So that's how she was able to get all of this going in his mind, get that idea that they have to get out of the UK for their safety. So she wants out of the UK, and she's portraying it to Harry because they hate her, they're racist against her, and it's a safety issue, when really we all know that she wasn't playing ball. She wasn't playing according to the rules of the game. She wasn't respecting the hierarchy within the royal family. She wanted to be the superstar, and when she found out pretty quickly that she wasn't going to attain that Diana 2.0 status that she really was after, that's when she really decided to call it quits. And I believe that's when she really upped the ante in the way of, we have to get out of here because it's not safe for me. So she's manipulating Harry behind the scenes and making it seem as if, I'm going to unalive myself because I am so scared for my safety. We have to get out of here. So he feels he has to act. He's being compelled to act. So that's what prompted them wanting to get out of the family. So they knew they wanted out, I believe, for a really long time, even before the Sangrenham Summit in January 2020. She never let go of her publicity team, and she never even brought all of her clothes overseas. She had her eye to go back to California for a really long time. And I'm sure that she was whispering in Harry's ear for a really long time, we are not understood, we are not appreciated, and we are not valued. We can take these titles and we can go over to America and we can monetize them. And that was their plan. They released their statement on their Sussex Royal Instagram account before they had even officially really decided anything with the Queen and Prince Charles and other senior members of the family. They had the full intent of working part-time for the royal family and maintaining the HRH titles. That summit was almost an emergency meeting of sorts because the family was scrambling, and the Queen, rightly so, was probably very upset. You don't announce something like that on public social media about you carving out your own progressive role in the institution without clearing it with Her Majesty first. So in my opinion, that's why that summit was even called. It was an emergency last-minute attempt to get those two to fall in line and understand the reality of their situation. Her late Majesty did not want to take the chance of those two going over and commercializing the HRH titles to make money off the back of those HRH titles. That's why they were told that they could not take those titles over and monetize them in America. If they wanted to retain their full-time security, if they wanted to retain the HRH titles, they had to stay in a full-time working capacity. They didn't want to do that. They wanted to hightail it over to America. But don't forget, even at that time, the royal family only thought that they were going to be going to Canada because that was the only information that Harry and Meghan were providing to them at that time. It was only once the border started closing, when COVID came around in those following months, when they basically made their last dash attempt over to California. Rebecca English from the Daily Mail has been reporting that when Harry entered into the summit negotiations, that he already was aware that his full-time UK police protection was going to be pulled if he did decide to move out of the UK and take Meghan with him. That he was aware of this, and that what was going to be happening at the negotiating table, they were basically trying to figure out what type of private security he could get and how it was going to be funded. And we all know that King Charles himself funded Harry and Meghan's private protection for the first year that they were outside of the family. And that Oprah interview was in March 2021. So he told Oprah in that interview, if you'll recall, that his family cut him off in early 2021. The bill for Harry and Meghan's private security was no longer going to be funded by his father, and he didn't like that. So that's why I feel that he started up with that whole legal court battle back in September 2021 in the first place, because he has had Meghan whispering in his little ear the entire time that we will not pay that you will not pay that. You are important and I am in danger and we need this essential protection. That's the whole reason why he's been fighting for this for the last 4 years. And that's what makes this even more rich, because if what Rebecca English is reporting is true, that he knew that that full-time police protection was going to get pulled and that he was just going in to negotiate about private security, maybe Harry and Meghan thought that Charles would just pay indefinitely for their private security. But how much is King Charles obliged to pay for this grown man, this petulant man boy, who is now 40 years old? But then also don't forget that that's basically why Harry said that they were even pursuing commercial endeavors, because he had to do something in order to provide for his family. So that was basically his way of justifying their Spotify contracts, their Netflix contracts. But don't be fooled, because when they were on the Lion King premiere carpet in London in 2019, he was already pushing his wife to the CEO of Disney, Bob Iger. So they already had commercial endeavors in the back of their minds. They are such walking contradictions. They're hypocrites. And frankly, in my humble opinion, they lie. So now that so many of their commercial endeavors are flopped, I really think that Meghan's narcissistic rage has really kicked into high gear. So can you imagine what's going on in that house now that he lost that court case? If the private security is no longer going to be funded by then Prince Charles, well then we'd better get that publicly funded security back whenever we go to the UK, right? We need to get that back. And it all stems from an inflated sense of self-importance. Security was pulled, the private funding for the security was pulled from Charles, and that in itself were two big ego blows that I don't think that those two were prepared for. And then you have Meghan going on all these podcasts talking about how happy she is, how fulfilled her life is. She's never been happier. And then you got this dolt of a husband of hers spitting rage on the BBC, basically making veiled accusations at his family that his family were interfering with Ravak's decision to pull his police security so that they essentially don't care about the threats to his life or to his family's life, and that's why he can't bring her over. That he's not afforded the same level of protection they are, despite the fact that he was born into that status. He's born into the family. He is who he is, and just by the status of who he is, his life is in constant danger. This is the narrative that he has built up in his mind. It is so diluted, it's so divorced from reality, and it's self-serving, and it perpetuates the victim narrative. But that's the victim narrative I think that Harry feels the most comfortable in, because I don't think that this man has it in him to just make a statement saying, look, I respect the court's decision and I will now move forward and work to try to provide privately funded security for my family to keep us safe. That's really all he has to say. But of course, he's not going to say that. He is hard done by, and everyone is out to get him. And more than that, everyone is out to get his wonderful wife. All Harry has to do when he wants to come over to the UK is just submit a request, give the government 30 days notice so that they can evaluate the visit on a case-by-case basis and determine the level of security that is required or what they deem is necessary and required for the visit. But he doesn't like that. He, I believe, wants the type of status where he can come and go to the UK at will and not have to ring them up 30 days ahead of time. He just wants to be able to pop over whenever he wants to get the type of security that he believes he's entitled to. And actually, he said as much in the interview that whether or not he's a full-time senior working royal is irrelevant. It's irrelevant because of the position that he was born in, and he can't do anything about who he is. But it actually is relevant. That's the whole point of it. You have to be a full-time working royal in order to afford that level of protection. And what he doesn't seem to want to get through his big, thick noggin here is that the public doesn't want to have to pay for his security. And why should they? Because he's no longer a full-time working royal. How many times do we want to go around with this, Harry? But Harry keeps getting on the merry-go-round of crazy. And why? Because he's got this succubus woman whispering in his ear at every opportune moment about how hard done by they are. She's been going on all these interviews and these podcasts and things talking about how wonderful her life is. She's never been happier. He's looking like he's about to cry on television in this BBC interview. There's a real disconnect there. And then after this horrible interview that has done nothing for his public image, that has basically made more and more people look at him, take a real look at him and think, who is this self-entitled brat, this man-child jerk? Who does he think he is? Who do these two think they are? And what is she doing? She's releasing pictures of them at a Beyonce concert, all hugged and loved up, looking like two middle schoolers. And I gotta say, looking at these pictures, you guys, I just do not understand how this 43, how old is she? 44-year-old woman can post these types of pictures when all of this stuff is crumbling around them and think that it looks mentally healthy. She doesn't look mentally healthy. She doesn't look mentally fit. She looks like a crazy person. And so does her husband, frankly. So I actually took some time to pop over to Instagram and actually look at some of the stuff that Meghan's been posting lately. And I guess apparently, according to her, she's on her concert era. So she was photographed with a bunch of those lovey-dovey pictures with Harry at the Beyonce concert. And now she just came back from a James Taylor concert, apparently. And there's pictures of her posing with James Taylor. And then I guess he's signing something. It looks like a book for her daughter, Lily. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure that's exactly what your 4-year-old daughter wants. Something from a man who's in his 80s. Yeah, okay, like his music, don't like his music. Point being, I don't think a 4-year-old... How old is this kid now? Do you think that a kid her age cares about that? Anyway, I digress. And it's always really funny how she still has not opened up the comments on her Instagram. How are you supposed to build any type of real authentic engagement with a community of followers if you do not open up the comment section? She is deadly afraid of the comment section, but unfortunately for her, she's going to have to open it up, and she's going to have to open up herself more to public scrutiny. She just needs to do an interview where she is asked the really hard questions. Both her and Harry need to, but her especially, because there is no coming out of this public backlash unless she either atones and gives a decent interview, or maybe she would get a whole different community of followers and different type of street cred or recognition if she just was like, yeah, this is who I am and what I've done and I feel like I'm right, and what, just like pick some form of authenticity, even if it's a horrible, rotten person who's being authentic. Just anywho, so I'm looking at these pictures, you guys, and it just all just really screams of a very superficial, pathetic attempt for continued relevance. And what's really sad is that I guess if you were a child that was given everything and never told no, that there is no difference between positive and negative attention, because either way you get what you want. She gets tons of negative attention on the daily, but she's still rich and she's still talked about. So I guess for a narcissistic personality like her, that's enough. But I'm looking at these pictures and they are so thirsty. She is so thirsty. She's making me thirsty. I need some water because, sorry guys, my throat was a little dry. Especially the one where she's hanging on him, and it's just she's wearing a dress that seems a little odd for a concert. I guess it's like supposed to be a cowboy theme. That's why the dress is denim. And apparently hours after these were posted, she's merching it already on her Shop My page. She's always got, you know, the really over exaggerated grins. The mouth is always open, showing every capped tooth of hers, eyes thrown back. It's just such, you know, the general gaiety and exuberance of her life hardly be contained. And I looked at Harry's hat, and I'm not a Beyonce fan, never really have been. I guess she thinks she's a country singer now, but this hat that Harry's wearing, it's not a cowboy hat. I know what cowboy hats look like. This man is wearing an oversized fedora. That's what that is. So someone needs to tell him that this isn't a cowboy hat. And any self-respecting country music lover who has a cowboy hat and a set of boots knows that that's not a cowboy hat. But anyway, it's just a big fedora. But it's just, you know, just these displays of just public affection and this exuberance and these smiles and these open mouth gaping smiles. And then the one video of him kind of cozying up to her, it seems like she can't get her face away fast enough, but she still has the perma grin. And it's like, where are your kids? What is your focus? And the other thing I thought of when I was looking at these pictures, you guys, is the one where she's got her arm around his neck. His hair looks really weird and greasy on his forehead. Nobody wears hats like that. If you wear a baseball hat or a hat, you pull your hair back. It just looks weird. He actually looks kind of high to me, if I'm being completely honest. He looks half in the bag, like he's probably on his 5th or 6th cocktail. And he's just her accessory. And one thing that I've noticed and I was thinking about when I was looking at these latest pictures, she always drags Harry out when her negativity, I think, gets a little bit too much for her to bear. He's just her emotional crutch. You'll notice when she is out there promoting something for her and when she's probably in a good mind frame, because I don't know, are most narcissists bipolar or manic or something? There's got to be some type of mania, I think, going on in her personality, because the point I was getting at was when she's flying high and when she's feeling good and she's promoting her endeavors, like her Netflix show or her brand launch or her podcast or whatever, she never trots Harry out. Everything that she's pushing out in social media is always her alone. She's the focus. But I feel like when the negativity starts getting to be a little bit too much for her to bear, that's when she brings out her human crutch, Harry. And that's what I'm seeing here. And when I saw the picture of this hat, you guys, the first thing I thought was it looked like a porta potty seat. And I remember looking over to the TV and thinking, What is that? That looks like a porta potty, but it's his hat. So I guess that's supposed to be like, his 10-gallon hat. But I'm thinking like, he's got Africa there. What real ties does he have to Africa now? I mean, this man's Sentabale charity is in shambles. There's all this infighting. Dr. Sophie has come out publicly saying that he is a bully that doesn't allow proud, strong, independent Black women to take the helm of a charity. And good on her. I can't wait until the Charity Commission in the UK releases their findings as to exactly what was going on within the running of that charity. And I hope Dr. Sophie is vindicated, because apparently she was driven off of social media by a lot of Harry and Meghan's toxic supporters. But yeah, so Sentabale is in shambles, and everyone knows what's going on with that African Park thing, which he was silent on when all the abuse of the Baka people became known in the media. We didn't hear one word from Harry and Meghan, did we? But Africa is so close to his heart. Africa is where his heart is. You know what? His wife doesn't care where his heart is, because if she really did, they would be off probably living a quiet life in Africa, away from cameras, away from all of this. If these two think that there's such security risks, then the way that they're living their lives and going about with this type of stuff on the old Instagram here, pushing themselves on everybody ad nauseum, all they're doing is lowering their status and their public perception. People are sick of these people. And if anything, if you're so worried about security, if you're so worried about threats against your wife and your family, why are you putting yourself out on public display like this? Make this make sense. And I'm sorry, but happy couples, people that are actually in love and living a good life with their spouse and their families, do not have to try this hard to show how happy they are. And frankly, all they're doing is just cheapening the royal brand. It's just really, really sad to know that they could have stayed in the royal family, accepted their position in the hierarchy, to know that they could have stayed within the privacy and the security confines of the royal family while having a world platform to really do some good, to actually stay and work for the Commonwealth, to actually pursue positive charities, and not just like a crummy foundation that you start when you move over here. They started that Archwell Foundation in October of 2020, and I should do a video on this, but foundations are actually only legally obligated to donate 5% of the money that they raise. They can actually pocket the other 95% to maintain their own portfolios. I mean, does that speak to you of two people that are living their life for service? In that BBC interview, Harry said that that is what his life is all about. He has devoted his life to service. Well, if you devote your life to service, you don't start foundations, in my humble opinion. You start charities that rely on funds from the general public, and when those funds are collected, they go direct to the causes. You don't set up these foundations so that legally you only have to give 5% of all your proceeds. Make this make sense. So that is all I'm seeing here in these photos. I'm seeing narcissistic rage. I'm seeing her continuing to use Harry as an emotional crutch, but it is not good. It is a full court press, you guys, a full court press to show us that they are a strong unit, that they don't care what we say, and they're just going to keep moving forward with their plan of worldwide admiration and domination. And I guess all we can do is just sit idly by and watch Meghan further her causes. And her causes are all about Meghan. It is actually a great thing that more and more mainstream media in the US and more podcasters and people that don't normally talk about these two are starting to talk about these two, because I think the more exposure that they get, something's gonna have to come to a head. And it doesn't matter that he's had the worst week of his life with this BBC interview, looking so dejected and angry. The man looks like he can spit nails, saying that his family doesn't care whether he lives or dies because he doesn't get this protection. But yet he's being trotted out to Beyonce concerts, looking half in the bag, being made to be her handbag, her accessory for the evening. She has to trot him out because she has to remind us that she's relevant. We might have all of these things to say about her spread or her podcast or her show being terrible, but she's going to trot him out to remind us that she's important, that she's a member of the British royal family, and she's relevant. And here's why she's relevant: because this is her handbag of a husband. So that's what I'm seeing here. So I would expect if the backlash gets even more negative, because remember, we've got season 2 coming of that show, of that With Love Meghan, and I don't think it's going to get better. In fact, I know it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. It's going to tank. I don't think that she's even going to get a fraction of the hate watchers that she got for the first go around for the first season. So I think it's going to be even worse. I don't even think that they're going to be coming out with anything else with Netflix. That partnership is essentially dead in the water. It's just not looking good. So I think the more that people have a negative opinion of everything that Meghan is doing solo in the way of her shows and her products, expect her to trot him out more and more. And she's going to use her narcissistic rage, mark my words, her rage against the fact that we're not buying what she's selling. She's going to rage even more and more, and she's going to be controlling more and more of his life. She's going to be bringing him out more to make herself look more relevant. So yeah, stay tuned, folks. Stay tuned. The saga continues. And for those people that say, you know, the ones that make videos about the Meghans and the Harrys and the Blake Lively's of the world and the Ryan Reynolds of the world, that we're just giving them more attention, even though it's negative attention and it's just fueling them. Well, they can think that. I personally am happy that more and more people are talking about individuals like this, like these narcissistic, elitist individuals that really do feel that the world revolves around them. They think that money, status, and power buy everything, even buy them a ticket to just bad behavior, just to act however that they want. It's just like what you see going on with the Diddy trial right now. I mean, how many decades was this man acting like this behind closed doors? And we've all seen that hallway video where he's beating up on his then girlfriend Cassie. And I'm thinking to myself, what was he doing when the cameras weren't rolling? But I have to say, the one satisfaction that I've been getting from looking at all of those sketches from his time in federal court, because as you know, they don't allow cameras in federal court, seeing Diddy's gray hair on the top of his head and on the scruff of his chin. I'm just so happy that he isn't allowed, or he doesn't have access to hair dye in prison. I would just imagine that a monster like Diddy would probably be so angry about the fact that he can't even dye his hair in jail, and that all these sketches are coming out of him looking like Grandpa Diddy. I know it's something small, but I obviously think that a personality like that, a narcissistic, sociopathic, crazy lunatic like Diddy, I think everything upsets him, because a person like that obviously wants to control everything and everyone around him. So just the fact that he can't dye his hair now, I don't know, that brings me an immense amount of satisfaction. I will be just keeping watch out there about all of the stories. If you haven't had a chance to watch any of my Joan Crawford videos, I would encourage you to please go and watch them. I know that Hollywood has been evil and corrupt since the very beginnings, and the way that even say the studio system was behind the scenes in treating the stars, but at least the stars of old Hollywood and yesteryear did their best to act right in public and to promote at least what seemed like a wholesome image to the general public. And they kept their mouths shut, and they didn't, do these horrible things and expect us not to care or notice. At least they tried to portray themselves as decent human beings. But someone like Joan Crawford, the more I've learned about her in my research and in reading her book, she had strength, she had resilience. She might have been controversial in her private life, but there's been a lot of different accounts to that as far as some of the allegations thrown to her, for example, abuse of her children. But that was stuff that came out after she died by 2 of her children that were actually written out of her will. So that might have been a strong motivator for Christina Crawford to write that book in the first place. But I digress. That series is really, really fun. My last 2 videos were all about Joan's fitness and beauty and health secrets. She talks about her diet, what she ate to remain slim and trim for over 5 decades. She talks about her beauty secrets, all of that good stuff. Sometimes we all need a palate cleanse. We all need a little break from all celebrity drama we have thrown into our faces every single day. And I think my Joan videos are a great way to escape. I also have a brand new book coming up that I am going to start reading. So I would encourage you, if you like my channel, give those videos a try. See if you like them. If you like Joan, you will really like my next book coming up. So I want to thank you so much for watching. Keep praying for Harry and Meghan, because those fools need all the prayers they can get. And I will talk to you guys very, very soon. Bye.